Information provided is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Neither Peter J. Deruta or his guests are liable for the usage of information discussed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken.
Coach Pete Radio.
Hi, this is Coach Pete.
In Chicagoland, I'm Ed Downey.
And if you've got questions about how to safely and properly allocate your investments, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Financial Safari.
Broadcasting from coast to coast, it's the Financial Safari with your host, Coach Pete Deruta. Coach Pete and his guests are some of the nation's top financial professionals. They make it their mission to guide investors through the treacherous jungle of the financial world, showing them how to grow, keep, and leave their money for their loved ones. Coach Pete is a frequent contributor to Fox Business Network, CNBC, The Wall Street Journal, and many other news outlets. They come to Coach Pete for their answers, and now so can you. So stick around and find out how to make it through the jungle of the financial world on the Financial Safari.
And welcome everybody to the Financial Safari. Walter Storholt here with you alongside John Stillman. Hey, John.
Good day, sir.
And Donna Mason is here as well. Hey, Donna.
Howdy, howdy.
And the King of Income Planning, Coach Pete Deruta, joining us as well. Hey, Coach.
Hey, good to see everyone.
Good to be here with you guys. Good to have our listeners with us today. Donna, I know you've got something in particular that you wanted to bring up today.
Well, you know, I always check foxbusiness.com and MSN just to see what the latest items are, the latest headlines for retirement and retirees. And this one was 3 keys to successful retirement planning, and it listed them, bullet points. One was create a target goal, how much you're going to need. The second is assess your progress, not just how much you have, but try to incorporate those variables. And the third is make a plan. So that's kind of how much you have versus how much you need, and then you have to close the gap. So that's really all they say. It seems like there's a whole lot more than just these bullet points, and after reading this, you don't necessarily know a whole lot more.
I was talking to CNBC the other day about this topic, about how people plan for retirement and how they fall for a lot of times the advertisements out there, Donna, or just the greed factor taking over, having all their money in one stock or one mutual fund or one segment of the market. And the writer was asking me, he said, well, how do you tell people that they should take more of a proactive view of their retirement, more overview and more diversification? I said, well, one thing we do when we sit down, and most everyone I talk to who I'm friends with in the financial circles does this too, none of us want to be a financial Jack Kevorkian for folks. We're not going to help you with assisted financial suicide. And so if you want all your eggs in one basket, then you need to do it yourself, basically, because most ethical planners won't encourage that.
And so when people make those decisions, what kinds of losses are they exposing themselves to when they put everything in one basket? How bad can it be if things are to go wrong?
Well, you look at some of the stocks, we're down 90% in the dot-com bubble crash, or lost all the money like Enron. So it depends on what stocks you're in. Now, that's an extreme example, but think about it. If you lost about 30% in the market in your retirement accounts, you'd need 43% return the next year just to get back to even.
And explain that math.
Yeah, well, if you lose 30%, now you're down to, let's say you start with $100,000, 30% loss, you have $70,000 now. If you gain 30% the next year, that would only be $21,000. So $21,000 and $70,000 is $91,000. So you're still $9,000 short, using a small example like that.
And that's only if the money is just sitting there. If you're drawing an income off of that $100,000, it's even worse,
So
right?
the toughest thing that people need to get their arms around is that when you go towards that retirement phase, we call it the financial red zone. When you're to the point where you're not earning any money, and now the money you have is going to have to come out and finance your retirement, the worst thing you could ever do is have something else reach in and take some of that money out in the form of market loss, fees, commissions, expenses. So you need to isolate some of your money in a safe harbor. And, you know, harbors are pretty standard and safe, and the view never changes, does it, in a harbor?
That's true.
And so you want a safe harbor. You want your view to always be the same. You don't want tidal waves. Tidal waves usually don't come into the harbor. They go outside onto the beach. And so sharks stay out of the harbors a lot of times too, don't they?
Yep.
So the most important thing anyone listening can do is make sure they have a true financial architect on their side. This author named Bob Grace down in Florida, I mean, he is a tremendous guy. He's had over 44 years experience in the financial world. But he wrote a book, How to Make Sure Your Money Lasts as Long as You Do. Now, anyone listening out there knows that the most important thing for their money is that it's going to be here to and through retirement, correct? You don't want to have a certain age you know you're going to run out of money. And if you don't have a true income plan put together, then that could happen in the future.
What about people, Coach, who are afraid to leave the market, though that's all that they've ever known?
Yeah, well, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's human nature to be scared of the unknown. And it's a whole different mentality to now take what you've basically had at risk. If you're working and you're getting a salary, you can take more risk because, in theory, if you lose the money, you can go out and working and replace it. But I've always been the mentality of, once you have it, why should you even expose it to the chance of going away? So there's 4 financial tools there we use in retirement planning, and it's all about being a financial architect. And you don't want your architect or the person who's building your house, a carpenter, they don't use just one hammer, do they? They have all different tools they use when they build a house. Same thing in the financial world, especially with retirement income planning.
So, folks, good advice and, of course, some good information available for you. And we're going to be talking more about this as we go through the program today, especially with your local trusted advisors. But if you want to call right now, you can talk to somebody with the Financial Safari team about these subjects. All you have to do is pick up the phone and dial 800-940-6979. That's 800-940-6979. And there's also a wealth of information online at financialsafari.com.
Well, let me throw one more headline at you, and this is one of those online website headlines about retiring. It said, retiring in a low interest rate world. So that's got to make it tougher.
That's where we are now. And, of course, the subtitle of the book I was talking about, How to Make Sure Your Money Lasts as Long as You Do, the subtitle is A 5% Cash Flow in a 1% Economy. Now, most people are happy now putting money in a CD at the bank or putting money in the bank altogether and making a 1% return. Now, how happy does that really make you, though, when we have inflation that could be 5, 6, 7, even 8% or more going forward? So if the bank's giving you 1, yet inflation is beating that money up by 8%, you have a net loss. You are losing money safely. So you got to have some safe money. If you're looking for safe money, a lot of times people go to the bond world, to savings bonds. And there's 2 types of savings bonds issued out there these days by the Department of Treasury. We've got the Series E bonds, which pay a fixed rate over the bond's 30-year term, and that's currently an uninteresting 0.6%, under 1%.
Oh.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? But people are piling money in there because they want some safety. There's also the Series I bond. You've heard the I bond. We've all heard of the I bond, the inflation-adjusted bond. And it's basically tied to the Consumer Price Index, and it can be adjusted up or down twice a year on May 1st and November 1st over the 30-year life of that bond. And the annualized yield right now, as of May 1st of this year, is 2.2% for the next 6 months in the I bond. Now, that's a lot better than 0.6, isn't it?
Well, a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, still not what we'd like to see, though, right?
Yeah, it's comparable to what is offered by the regular U.S. Treasury bond maturing in 20 years. So it also beats the Treasury inflation-protected securities. Everyone's heard of TIPS. You heard of TIPS before? Mm-hmm. And it beats that. So it basically, it's just a way where you can put your money in. It never goes below 0. So if the inflation rate or the CPI index falls to a negative number, it would stay at a 0% rate. But to me, why not just put it under the bed if you're not going to earn anything?
Well, let me ask you a question, because I have some EE series bonds that my mother bought a long time ago. Now, they haven't matured. They have reached their face value, but they're still doing like 3 and 4%.
Yeah.
Should I leave it there?
Yeah, if you're still getting that kind of return on that, now a lot of people don't realize that the return can stop in the future, and so you end up with 0. So that happened to an aunt of my mom's back in the day when she passed away. There was no interest for the last 10 years. She had just had the money in the safety deposit box or the bonds in the safety deposit box and didn't realize they weren't earning anything. So it's all about just getting your arms around what's going on. The first thing you need is some emergency money, and that's what we use the bonds for. The I bonds, again, better than a regular E bond. 2.2% is better than a CD. Good emergency money, because you can get, after the first year, you can get that money out at any time with a 3 months worth of interest penalty. And after 5 years of the money being in the I bond, you can take the money out with no penalties whatsoever.
But what about tax consequences when you start cashing them in?
Well, that's good. You can delay and defer taxes on them, or you can pay them every year. They are exempt from state tax, though, automatically. So federal tax is the only thing you have to worry about. So, find out about the I bonds. It's a good part of your portfolio. And then for money you need to have growth for an income in the future, get a laddering strategy. And inside that laddering strategy, make sure you have some vehicles in there that will give you that 5% cash flow here in this 1% economy. And it is possible. You just have to get with a planner who understands all these intricacies of the financial world, and we do.
And folks, we'll tell you how you can get in touch with your local trusted advisor here in just a moment. But Donna, you mentioned taxes, and I think maybe that's just an important segue. And Coach, I think we can probably do a whole segment on this maybe in a future show, and we'll go ahead and put it on the calendar to do this. But, we're in October now. The end of the year is going to come at us really fast. Is there any quick advice you can give to somebody that may be trying to do end-of-year planning? Is there something in the next 3 months that they need to make sure that they do?
Well, the planning's a good aspect there, Walt, and one thing they need to make sure to do is do it now and don't put it off. I mean, April 14th is not the time to do tax planning. That's tax preparation time. So right now is the time to sit down with a planner who understands tax law and also works with some CPAs and has a certified tax coach on call to help make sure that your money is minimized for taxes but maximizes for gain.
So, folks, for questions on bonds, for questions on mutual funds, for questions about anything out there in the financial world, whether it be safe money or just talking about some of these strategies for tax planning and tax preparation, the number to call to get in touch with your local trusted advisor is 800-940-6979. That's 800-940-6979. You can also go online to financialsafari.com for a wealth of information there as well. Thanks so much for tuning into the Financial Safari. Today we have a great show on the way, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Rob, America's Fitness Doctor, and welcome to Financially Fit to Physically Fit. And today we're going to talk about chocolate. What? Dr. Rob, did you say chocolate? I did, and dark chocolate is one of my favorites. Now, there's 4 great benefits to having chocolate on a regular basis. It can protect your heart. That's right, dark chocolate can protect your heart. The wonderful thing about dark chocolate, it can decrease your cholesterol, it can lower your blood pressure, and it can help improve your cardiovascular status. Another great thing about dark chocolate is it's great for appetite control. Dark chocolate contains a little bit of caffeine, and it's great at suppressing your appetite and helping you cut those cravings. Something else that's wonderful about dark chocolate, it improves your digestive system. It's full of things called isoflavones, which help regulate your digestive system and make you feel better. And the 4th thing about dark chocolate, it's wonderful at boosting your immunity. One of the things that's in it, it's full of vitamins and minerals. That's right, calcium, iron, magnesium, and zinc, and all of these things can boost your immunity. So one of the things that you're going to do this Halloween season is include a little bit of dark chocolate, 1 to 2 ounces on a daily basis to improve your overall health. This has been Dr. Rob, and remember, fitness is the footprint of life. Follow it.
Find out more at financialsafari.com.
The Financial Safari Radio Show features some of the best retirement planners from across the country and is your source for common sense information to help in your retirement planning. We pride ourselves on bringing 21st century solutions to our clients' retirement needs.
In the Chicagoland area, contact the president of Downey Financial Group, Ed Downey, at 800-940-6979. Again, that's 800-940-6979.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Financial Safari, your weekly show looking inside that complex financial world, trying to make it a little less complicated for all of our listeners. And it's at this point of the show where we like to talk with our local trusted advisors all around the country. And in Chicagoland, we talk with Ed Downey. Now, he's president of Downey Financial Group, and you can get in touch with him at any time by calling 800-940-6979. Again, that's 800-940-6979. John?
Well, thank you very much, Coach Pete. And Ed, how are you this week?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well. Certainly always a pleasure to talk to you. Again, folks, Ed Downey, our local trusted advisor right there in the Chicagoland area, the president of Downey Financial Group. 800-940-6979 is his number. 800-940-6979. Ed, I heard somebody the other day talking about the impending Taxmageddon, they called it. Taxmageddon. What exactly are they talking about?
Well, I think that is a great word for it. It is, what we are looking at expecting happening at the first of the year here with a lot of tax breaks that are coming to an end and a lot of new tax rules that are coming online at the beginning of the year. So, what we're looking at, in its synopsis, is really one of the largest tax increases in the history of the United States. Definitely, I think one of the largest tax increases I've seen in my 20-year career. One of the things that I see is that a lot of people are really unaware of just how big of a deal this is, how big of a change it's going to be tax-wise, and if they are aware, are very confused as to what to do about it.
Yeah, I think it's something that, it weighs heavily on some people's minds, and then other people really haven't thought about it that much. They don't quite understand exactly what's going to be changing in 2013. Can you sort of outline exactly what kind of changes people can expect once this calendar year changes over?
Sure, John. I think one of the biggest things that people are going to be shocked to find out is that even the nominal tax bracket rates are going to increase. You're going to see, the 10% bracket really expand to about 15%. The 25 will now really be 28. Every bracket across the board is going to see a pretty significant federal increase in their tax rate. And that's what that means is that you're, even though you might be earning the same amount of money next year that you were this year, or maybe even slightly less, you're going to see a bigger tax bite taken out of your paycheck, or how much you actually get back or owe at the end of the year. You combine that with some of the things we've seen in Illinois here, which is the single largest tax increase I think I've ever seen in my career anywhere. Doubling almost of the tax rate. What you see is that people are having a lot less to live on at the end of the day. And it's something that we preach here at Downey Financial Group, is that it's not just about your investments, it's not just about how much you make, but it's about how much you really get to keep at the end of the day. That's ultimately the most important thing. So one of the things we really preach and strive to do is, besides good investment suggestions and ideas, to combine that with tax planning and tax preparation is really key. Many people we meet for the first time, we hear them say, I have an accountant, I have a CPA. What's the difference, with what you guys do or what a financial advisor might do? And what we try to explain to them is that there's a huge difference between preparing tax returns and tax planning. Preparing a tax return is really about what happened in the past. It has nothing to do with preparation or planning to try to reduce or deal with taxes in the future, and that's where tax planning really comes in. So, what we're seeing, I think, is kind of the chicks coming home to roost kind of thing, where we've seen the tax pendulum kind of swing towards in favor of the taxpayer. Now that pendulum's starting to swing back, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize, okay, we need to pay attention to this. What are the options? What can I do to protect myself from these huge changes that are coming down the pike here in just a few months?
Yeah, and it sounds like, I guess, since you guys do both the tax planning and the tax preparation, there's probably an advantage there to the client, right, to have the same person doing both?
Well, of course I'm going to say yes, because we do. But, I found early in my career that people were asking me investment questions and then in the same breath also asking me a tax question. So I just believe they do go hand in hand. That your investment decisions are intertwined with your tax decisions. Up to this point, your tax decisions might have been to ignore your tax decisions, but that's still a decision. It's a decision to do nothing about it. And what I find is that a really well-structured long-term plan for yourself needs to have not only the investment part, but also the tax part weighed out. I really think that in many cases what we see is when people weigh both things out, it can really help them make smart decisions long-term of which way to go. And, our firm, we've been preparing taxes in the western suburbs now for over a decade. We do over 1,000 tax returns annually here, and I think it is the combination of a firm doing both sides that can really give well-rounded suggestions to a client.
When you meet with people for the first time, Ed, do you find that a lot of them have not really thought that much about the tax element of their retirement planning? I think a lot of people probably have money sitting in tax-deferred accounts and maybe some other money in tax-free accounts, and maybe they haven't thought about exactly how much they're going to have to pay in retirement?
You know what I think, John? I've seen people, in many cases, give some thought to it, understand some of the basics, but not really understand much more than the basics, and really just kind of maybe done some tax deferral, automatic deductions through maybe a 401k contribution or something like that, and not really understand what the long-term ramifications of that upfront tax break really are. On the other hand, we've seen people that do kind of understand what the long-term challenges are with a 401k or an IRA, but just kind of feel helpless. Like, well, what can I do? There's, what other choices do I have? And really what we find is going through an education process with that client and really helping them learn about a well-rounded strategy from a tax standpoint really makes them feel excited and better about their long-term tax situation with their investments. I kind of compare it a little bit to a bomb disposal unit. If a bomb disposal unit can come in and address the thing before it goes off, a lot of good can happen. But once the bomb's gone off, once that tax bomb's gone off, there's nothing that they can do. Now you need an ambulance. You don't need the bomb crew. So it really is about being proactive, about planning and understanding, how the taxes really work for yourself today and long term, and what your choices are, and really having a well-rounded tax strategy. And you know what, John? There's so many people out there that just don't have any kind of plan in place, that one of the things I want to offer everyone out here is a complimentary one-page financial review. The first thing someone needs to do on the journey to financial success is really to figure out where they're at right now. And I think the number one thing I hear when we meet somebody is, Ed, are the structures and investments and plans I have right now any good? Am I in good stuff? Well, for all callers who call in the next 15 minutes, we're going to offer a custom-designed one-page financial review that will really help indicate if you're in need of a full-blown financial plan. Now, there's no obligation or cost for this initial review to all callers who call in the next 15 minutes and have at least $200,000 saved up for retirement. Now, this is an easy-to-understand one-page financial review that can really help you take the mystery out of financial planning and tax planning and map out where you really are now. Now, John, one of the pieces of that a lot of our new people seem to really like is our A to F grading system that can really help you rate your good investments from your not-so-good investments. Now, we can also run a fee report to help you be totally aware of what working with your current advisor is actually costing you. A lot of our prospective clients are shocked to discover just how much they're paying in fees. And we can help you make sure that any fees you are paying are not excessive and that they're really pointing you towards what you want your money to do for you. Now, John, we can also perform a brief tax analysis to reveal how you could possibly reduce your taxes and increase your cash flow. Now, one of the reasons I think we're so effective at that is we actually prepare taxes. As I mentioned earlier, my tax department prepares over 1,000 tax returns annually. Now, we could even create a customized lifetime income plan for you, utilizing proven strategies and techniques that I think could really turbocharge your retirement income. In short, John, I think we could take a lot of the worry out of living in retirement for you with this type of planning. So, for all callers who call in the next 15 minutes, that easy-to-understand one-page financial review, that's what we're offering today with no obligation.
This is for retirees and pre-retirees. It's that common sense planning and straight talk instead of all the financial double talk and sales pitches out there today. Folks, you need to sit down and get a financial roadmap put together. And Ed Downey, he'll translate for you that complex financial world into very clear instructions. We all feel this is an excellent chance for you to get that true practical financial review. And again, for anyone listening right now, the number to call is toll-free, 800-940-6979. Once again, that's 800-940-6979. You'll receive a comprehensive financial review showing where you are now, but most importantly, that roadmap to get you where you need to be. In short, folks, you have nothing to lose. Call now, don't delay. Again, 800-940-6979.
Folks, it really is a terrific chance for you to get some common sense planning. Give Ed Downey a call, 800-940-6979. 800-940-6979 is his number. Stick around. We'll talk with Ed a little bit more later on in the show, but we'll be back with more in just a moment right here on the Financial Safari.
Do you feel the financial markets have managed to gain some type of stability? Don't mistake a short period of market stability for safety. Now is the time to review your plan and your progress to see if what you are doing is working to give you real financial success into the future.
In the Chicagoland area, contact the president of Downey Financial Group, Ed Downey, at 800-940-6979. Again, that's 800-940-6979.
And welcome back in, folks, to the Financial Safari. This week we have a very special guest. He's a friend of the show. He's been on in the past. His name is Rick Buter. He's author of The Great Wall Street Retirement Scam, What They Don't Want You to Know About Your IRAs, 401k, and Other Plans. Rick, welcome in.
Thanks, Pete. I'm excited to be here with you today.
And you're joining us from San Diego, I believe, correct?
Yep, on the other coast here, all the way in San Diego, and beautiful day here. Glad to be here to share with you.
Now, what caused you to write the book, The Great Wall Street Retirement Scam, Rick?
Well, being a financial advisor in the profession for nearly 30 years, during the decade of the 2000s, I was going home as a professional with headaches, saying, why aren't the traditional methods of thinking about money that advisors are educated on working? And so we went through the tech bust, we went through the 9/11, we had all these things happen during the decade, and it caused me to ask why. And so I started doing the research on this. I studied the history of retirement in America. I studied the training systems for financial advisors. I studied the politics between Wall Street and government, and the conclusions that I came up with were just shocking, and I had to put it in a format where everybody in America could understand what is happening is that we have all been part of a financial indoctrination program under the influence of Wall Street and sponsored by the government of America.
Yes, it's kind of amazing when you start digging behind the curtain and seeing what's back there, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. And it's very hard for the average person to really understand exactly what's going on. And in the book, The Great Wall Street Retirement Scam, we provide some resources, we provide some data points, and we answer questions to help people understand that this program, the retirement system that we have today in America, has been heavily influenced by Wall Street. Even the founding father of the 401k plan came out and said, this is a huge mistake. It's a huge problem. They should blow it up and start all over again. And this came out after my book came out, so we definitely see something going on that really needs to be unveiled to every American who's concerned about their retirement.
Now, when you mentioned 401k, I know you write about the 401k, and you call it the financial triangle of doom. Now, what is that?
Well, basically, the way that I see this, as I mentioned before, I see this as the financial indoctrination of Americans. But if you imagine the shape of a triangle, Pete, in the bottom left-hand corner of that triangle, we have 401ks and IRAs. And basically, what happens here is you put money into these retirement accounts. You can't touch it for the next 40 years. So your money is mostly inaccessible to you. I mean, there's 401ks. People can't even get their money out. They're horrible investment options. But all the while, that money is sitting in that triangle. You might have losses, but you're certainly going to have fees. So you really don't have any great benefit while it is sitting there. And there's no assurance or guarantee of any retirement benefit. Okay, now imagine you accumulate a substantial amount of money there, but you can't touch it. So Now we have to go to the top of the triangle, banks, and we have to go to the banks now to be able to finance our major purchases of life, even though we might have a substantial savings in these retirement accounts. So now when we finance through banks, we have money flowing away from us there in the form of interest costs to be able to finance the major purchases, even though we're following the advice of every financial planner in America, putting the money in these 401ks never to be seen again for 40 years. That's costing us. The banks are costing us. Now get to the bottom right-hand corner of this triangle, Pete. Here's what I see happening right now in America that I'm very, very concerned about, especially with the financial predicament that the government's in. When you start drawing this money out and you start using this money in retirement, Coach Pete, you're going to be paying taxes on that money. But, Pete, if you were a farmer and you had your choice between paying taxes on a little bag of seed or paying taxes on the entire harvest of crops, what would you choose?
The little bag of seed all day long, Rick.
Oh, that's the right answer. Good for you. But here's what we have going on. We have Americans pulling this money out now. These retirement accounts are paying taxes on the harvest. By the way, Pete, do you think taxes are going up or down in the next 10 years?
Unfortunately, and I wish I was wrong, I think they're going up.
Yeah, they're up. I mean, our government is in a serious predicament, and the only way out of this is to raise taxes and destroy benefits. But that's not the worst part of this triangle. In the bottom right-hand corner, we have the government, the IRS. Let me ask you a question, Coach Pete. Would you ever go in, buy a house, sign a contract, move into the house, and find out what you paid for the house after you moved in?
That's like Congress signing a bill and then reading it later.
Okay, what about buying a car? Would you ever go in, buy a new car, sign a contract, take it off the lot without knowing what you paid for it?
Nope.
Okay, think about this for a moment. The government, through this triangle of doom, I call it triangle of oppression because it really is, because you can't get your money, has all of these retirees now. They're going to be paying taxes on their retirement distributions at a rate that is yet to be determined. They don't even know what they're going to be charged to get the use of their own money. Think about that for a moment. It's crazy.
Yeah. And folks, we're talking to Rick Buter. He's the author of The Great Wall Street Retirement Scam: What They Don't Want You to Know About Your IRAs, 401k, and Other Plans. And Rick, that's a good title. And finding financial security in retirement with 401k and IRA plans is difficult these days, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And I think what you have to look at and think about is this system that we have in terms of being able to create, income in retirement. It's only been around 37 years now. And it's an experiment. We've never done it before in history, and it came out in 1974. I call it the Home Depot system, and it's where you do it yourself. Now, Coach Pete, I don't know about you, but I was not given the 4-year course and training program on how to create my own pension paid for by the government. Did you get that course?
No, we're still waiting on that one, Rick.
Yeah, and so that's what the government has asked the average American to do. They've asked them to become a professional pension manager, and it's been a complete failure. And so I guess the path that you have to take is, if you are involved in this, how do you protect yourself? Isn't that the right question that we want to be thinking about?
Yes, very good question.
Yeah. And so what now you want to be thinking about, especially in the environment that we're in, is we've got these headwinds that we've got ahead of us with higher taxes. Higher interest rates are going to come. We have to think about all of the repercussions that are going to happen when rates go up, companies become less profitable, everything costs more, government borrowing is going to go up. We've got the Federal Reserve who's injecting huge amounts of money into the banking system. We've got Europe that's beginning to melt down. And we have this system now that the government has lured Americans into where their money's tied up. It's on Wall Street. And we need to be looking at solutions that can protect us. And what I have to tell you is the system has been there. It has always existed to be able to protect your most serious, your most conservative money. And that system comes amazingly from the life insurance industry. Most people are not aware of this. If you talk to your great-grandparents, they could give you a great lesson on this. But if we go back to the Depression, the financial institutions that made it through the Great Depression of 1929 and the 30s were the life insurance companies. And today, people receive pension checks, millions of people receive pension checks guaranteed by life insurance industries, because that is where retirement security has been created if you look at the history of retirement in America.
Rick, are you familiar with the term income rider?
I am.
How is an income rider? How would it benefit the listener out there who has a 401k and a 403b to have an income rider which would guarantee lifetime income on their plans?
Well, the income rider is actually a new feature that the insurance companies have been able to place on annuities to be able to guarantee a future income at a future point in time, to have total confidence that you will have a guaranteed income for life when you choose to turn that income on. And so for folks that need to have that security, that want to absolutely be able to point out and say, I'm going to have this income at this point in time guaranteed for the rest of my life, an income rider on a fixed annuity can make tremendous sense.
So why doesn't everyone have at least one of these in their plan, especially for retirement income they don't want to outlive?
Well, I think many people are not aware of all the features and benefits and solutions that come from the life insurance industry. You have to go back and remember and understand that we've all been part of a financial indoctrination program. All through the 90s, there was a propaganda campaign by Wall Street to really tell people to avoid annuities, to avoid these solutions. And so we've been brainwashed to think that that's not what we should be doing, and therefore no one's gone out and gotten educated on these things. They've lost money, they've lost their retirement, and it's really funny now because you'll start to hear Wall Street people starting to talk about these solutions, and of course now we've had all the losses, right? And I would be very weary of any Wall Street person that begins to talk about these, because many advisors are just not that well educated and understand these features that Pete and I are talking about right now. So if you are concerned, if you see what I see, and that's really a financial indoctrination program that's taken place where Wall Street has influenced people to put money who would have not otherwise done so on Wall Street, you really need to investigate these features that we're talking about.
And folks, I couldn't agree more, and give a call right now if you'd like to investigate some of those features and benefits and have an analysis of where your 401k, 403b, or retirement plan is currently heading and what you could be doing by just making a couple minor adjustments. Again, that number is 800-940-6979. Again, that's 800-940-6979. Rick Buter, author of The Great Wall Street Retirement Scam. We appreciate your time and look forward to having you back on when your new book comes out.
Hey, great. Thanks, Coach Pete, for having me. Enjoyed being here today.
Pleasure was all on this side of the microphone, Rick. And folks, we'll be right back after this.
What should be the number one concern for most retirees and pre-retirees looking for future financial stability? Income planning. It means making sure that your money can support you and your family for the rest of your lives in the most efficient manner possible. Sitting down with a retirement planning specialist can make all the difference.
In the Chicagoland area, contact the president of Downey Financial Group, Ed Downey, at 800-940-6979. Again, that's 800-940-6979.
Welcome back. It is the Financial Safari, your weekly show looking inside that complex financial world, trying to make it just a little bit simpler. And of course, one of the ways that we do that is by talking to our local trusted advisors all around the country, like Ed Downey. Ed is our local trusted advisor right there in the Chicagoland area. He's the president of Downey Financial Group, more than 20 years of experience here in the financial industry. And you can reach him at any point by calling 800-940-6979. Of course, you can hear the Financial Safari coast to coast, but we do like to go local for part of the show and give you somebody right there in your backyard who can be a resource for you. Ed, here's one thing I'm curious to hear your perspective on, and that's the difference that men and women have as they approach retirement and financial planning. What differences do you see as you're meeting with couples, husbands and wives? How do men and women approach all of this differently?
You know, that is a great question, and it is something that is totally normal. So in the normal scenario that I see is where we sit down, get to know a couple and have one spouse feel one way about their money, and the other spouse feel totally different. So the first thing I'll say is that is totally normal. It is actually less common where I find both spouses are completely in agreement and are on the same page. So, if you're out there and feel like there's maybe, for lack of a better word, a conflict, between you and your spouse because of, how you feel about money, I will say that is, don't feel that way. That is totally normal. And I think it is really the job of a good advisor to really help understand how each individual person in the relationship really feels about money. And what we find also in many cases is that when we actually look at a prospective client's investments, that in many cases it kind of is leaning one way or the other, meaning maybe leaning towards an extremely risk-based type of philosophy, or just the opposite, maybe leaning towards a very guaranteed or low risk but low return type of philosophy. And in many cases what we find is that there's a middle ground is usually somewhere that a couple needs to look at to make sure everybody's happy and all the needs are being met. And so when we look at both men and women, what we also find is that in many cases women's concerns are very different from men's, just because of what we see from a longevity standpoint and what we see from, and frankly, how much they've earned versus their spouse or other people in the, out there standpoint over their careers. A lot of the things we see that are concerns for women are really based on really them wanting to make sure that they're going to not run out of money, that they're going to have enough money to live on and not have to have the same worry level about it. Combined with that, what we see that, and I've seen this firsthand, that women have in many cases a higher concern about is a potentially higher chance that they're going to need to use a good amount of their money for their own health care long term, as opposed to men. And so a lot of the concerns that we see that women have, especially, are very well founded and very and very understandable. And that's something that we take into account for sure. Even in scenarios where it's not brought up in a conversation, in many cases we could tell it's an underlying concern, and that has to be weighed into any decisions or recommendations that the client looks at.
Well, let's touch on something that you mentioned just a moment ago. By the way, folks, we're talking with Ed Downey. He is our local trusted advisor right there in Chicagoland here on the Financial Safari. Ed, you mentioned health care later in life for women, especially who are living longer and longer every year, it seems like, many of them outliving their husbands. Long-term care, a nursing home stay, things like that, can really obliterate a portfolio, really run through somebody's savings in a hurry. What kind of recommendations do you have for somebody who doesn't want to specifically buy a long-term care policy, because those aren't cheap, but at the same time they don't want to be exposed to the risk of a long-term care event in their life?
Well, one thing that we try to help clients understand is that you don't get to choose. Okay, it's not a choice. You needing long-term care, meaning you needing someone to help you on a regular basis, do the daily things that you're able to do by yourself. No one chooses that. You get to a point where you have no choice, where you need help. And in many cases, what people think is, well, I have a family member, I have a child, or a spouse, but that will help me do that. But in reality, what we see in our practice, over the last 20 years, what I've seen is that in many cases it gets to a point where you have to have a registered medical professional helping you administrate things, and your family member can't do it. So the point there is you don't get to choose. It just happens. The cost of that is $6,000 a month roughly. That's like a median average here in Illinois. Could be much higher, could be less, but that's an average. And the real question then is, if it's a concern, how is that $6,000 going to be paid? How are you going to do that? Is your portfolio right now structured to handle that type of blow, or is it not? So we really take a look at how are you set up right now. What are things that can be done to help cushion that blow? And in many cases, after going through that, people will then go revisit that long-term care insurance option. Just say, well, how much is that insurance again? Can I actually even qualify for it? But the other things then we start to look at is, how is your estate structured? Have you taken a look at all the avenues you can to just protect your estate that way? And really, how are you invested right now? If it happened today, how would your portfolio react? How would you be okay? So we really take a look at the cold hard facts there, and in many cases, what people do is they then start to go backwards and say, okay, I see what the end result would be there. What do I need to do now to help prepare for this better?
Well, Ed, I think it's something that a lot of people really should think about in their retirement planning, because it is something that people really need to think about and need to sit down with a good, competent planner and advisor that can advise them the right way. Ed, earlier in the show, you gave out an offer for folks to come sit down with you and kind of get their financial roadmap put together. Is that something we can open up to a few more listeners here?
Absolutely. And, that threat, along with a lot of other threats, it should just be one more thing that's taken in consideration with the decisions you make as an individual for your future. And I mentioned, John, the first thing somebody really needs to do on that journey is to really figure out where they are right now, what they really want their money to do for them. And, I think the number one thing I hear is what I have going on right now any good at? Am I heading in the right direction? Well, for all callers who call in the next 15 minutes, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to offer that custom-designed one-page financial review that's really going to help indicate if you're in need of a full-blown financial plan or not. Now, there's no obligation or cost for that review to all callers who call in the next 15 minutes and have at least $200,000 saved up for retirement. It is a very easy-to-understand one-page financial review, and I think it can really help take a lot of the mystery out of the financial planning process and really map out where you are now. Now, John, as I also said, one of the things we get a lot of comments on is our grading system on a lot of your current holdings from A to F can really help rate if you're in good or not so good stuff. Now, we can also run a fee report to really help find out and discover what you're actually paying your current advisor, what it's costing you. A lot of our prospective new people are shocked to find out just how much they're actually paying in fees. We want to make sure that any fees you are paying are not excessive and that they're really helping you get to where you want to go and pointing you in the right direction. Now, John, we could even perform a brief tax analysis to reveal how somebody could possibly reduce their taxes and increase cash flow. And, we prepare over 1,000 returns here at my tax department a year, and so we really have insight as to how to do that. We could even customize a lifetime income plan for you, utilizing proven strategies and techniques that could really help turbocharge your retirement income plan. In short, John, I think we could take a lot of the worry out of living in retirement for you with this type of planning. So for all callers who call in the next 15 minutes, that easy-to-understand one-page financial review, that is what we're offering today with no obligation.
Folks, it's a great chance for you to get that common sense and straight talk instead of double talk or a sales pitch or anything like that. Again, the number to call is 800-940-6979. 800-940-6979. Ed Downey, right there in Chicagoland, can take that complex financial world and break it down into very clear instructions for you. Again, 800-940-6979. Don't waste any time. Go ahead and give Ed a call right now and get some peace of mind for yourself in your retirement. Ed, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for taking good care of our listeners out there, and we'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks so much, John. It was a pleasure.
And we'll talk to you next week on the Financial Safari.
Coach P Radio.
Information provided is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Neither Peter J. Deruta or his guests are liable for the usage of information discussed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product